So I guess we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending from where you're joining us. I'm Khadija Usman, your host and the founder of the community Grit Coaches, a community of fab coaches from around the world, and coming back to the Grit Talk Show series. For those of you who are new to it, we cover the journey of different coaches, their areas of passion, and how they are creating a difference in the lives of others. By the way, if you are a coach, and especially if you're starting out and you're looking to create a sales page for no cost at all, you don't have a website, and you want to learn from experienced coaches, do hop on to www.gritcoaches.com and have a look at our platform and DM us or send us a message if you'd like to be a part of it too. Today, coming back to this present moment, we have a beautiful guest joining us from Barcelona, Goldie Uttamchandani, who is a bilingual award-winning coach, and she is a PCC level coach as well. She helps young leaders in raising awareness about the challenges they face and how we as adults and as parents can empower them and make their journey much easier, or facilitate their journey, as I might add. I'd like Goldie to now introduce herself and please elaborate on your choice of topic, the communication shift with screenagers, because yes, in today's world, I think children, as they're born with gadgets in their hands, I think they see the screen before they see their mother's face. Can we say that? So please, Goldie.
Yeah, thank you, Khadija, for the beautiful introduction. I'm grateful to be here, and taking on from the thread of what you've said, one of my main, I think, missions for this year has been to understand this revolution. I think I would call it a revolution that we're experiencing in terms of communication with youth and young leaders. Why do I call them leaders? Because tomorrow they will essentially be a part of our caretake, whether it's in a home or in a professional space. And with that in mind, what I want to focus on is the title is the shift from in communication with screenagers. The word screenagers comes in as a candid pun intended word, because essentially what we have to be very cognizant of is that we cannot avoid technology or put it on the side or resist it. This is commonly a battle that both parents, certain caregivers are trying to meddle with. So the first thing I would like to say is you can't defeat or resist it, so you may as well embrace it. And here comes sort of the understanding behind what is a screenager. You and I come from a very different, mindset of communication, because we've both essentially not really studied with computers. We probably got them introduced a bit later, in our educational arena. But they have already begun, as you said, from the minute they're born. They have a camera facing them in the hospital being taken a picture of. So it's cognitively changing a lot of things for them already in the brain from the minute they're born. Now, what we need to understand is how we can navigate these changes in the most effective, way possible. Because there's actually nothing wrong with technology, and too much of it also is actually not a bad thing. It's the way and the quality of it that we use it, which is the big game-changing sort of argument that I want to discussion that I want to talk about today. So if that makes sense, we can't resist, we must embrace. And how?
Yes, so Goldie, you brought a very relevant point here, that a lot of parents are trying to battle it. how do they bring that level of acceptance in them? Because as you said, they were not born, like, when they grew up, they did not have the same exposure to technology. So it's a generation gap as well. And the transition, what are ways that they can try to embrace it, as you said?
Well, the first thing that I want to say is to actually understand what the purpose of the technology being used is. So essentially, if you are going to be using computers or phones or video games, anything that is related to digital technology, all of it has a purpose. Now, the difference between all of these different functionalities is what is the end objective? The first question I ask parents is, what is the end objective? You enabling your child to be, exposed to technology. If we take an example of a child who wants to be creative online, well, you could motivate this child to create their own YouTube channel. And thus, this enables them to exercise a series of social skills, but in an online capacity, which essentially is a very positive outlook to technology. Creating an online channel, starting, a process of using your creativity and then exposing yourself to the world through the online system, it would be a beneficial, positive way. On the other hand, if you have a child who has a TikTok account, which for the most part, many kids do these days, they have not one, but multiple accounts. So the purpose and objective of that is a very different one. You could be scrolling through videos and getting educated even. Up till there is fine. But doing doom scrolling, which is again a very novel word, doom scrolling is when all you're doing is, swiping. That's all you're doing. Yeah. And this is actually algorithmically created for you to be doing on purpose, because the companies that developed, the algorithms of TikTok are enticing you through their marketing campaigns to actually be doom scrolling all day long. Now, that obviously has a very detrimental effect on the brain, because you're not allowing the brain to use its cognitive capacities to exercise the prefrontal cortex and apply it in more applied thinking, critical thinking. And the best way that I can explain this is what you're eating. So if you're going to be doom scrolling on TikTok all day, that would be like a junk food, empty calorie diet. Whereas if you were to engage in your own YouTube channel, or even, have your own Instagram account where you're giving it a purpose, like I love photography, so I will take pictures and share with the world my talent. That is a more healthy diet. It's not empty calories. You're acknowledging the nourishing nutrients that are going into your mind and brain and enabling you to use the PFC, the prefrontal cortex, in a much better capacity. So that's the first thing. And then, of course, you need to have this conversation with your child. And it's not just a one-off, it's an ongoing conversation that you need to be addressing with your child. And with that come an array of opportunities, like, what is disinformation? What are you reading on social media? Is it the entire truth? This opens, again, another beautiful conversation on challenging them to understand, what are you absorbing and what are you understanding from it? You and I grew up reading books and newspapers and going to libraries. They have access at the fingertip to information, which for the most part could be challenged for its truth and for the fake news, as we commonly know it as.
So, Mr. Goldie, even we as adults are sometimes doom scrolling, and our children know that. So when they sort of throw it back at you that, you're doing the same thing, why can't I? So how do we counter that?
Well, this is about ethics, isn't it? It's about the ethical application of what you decide to do. Are you imbibing the same practices that you are then preaching? Do you practice what you preach? That's a very interesting question you ask, because most kids won't think twice before pointing the finger to their parent.
Yes.
And this is obviously something that I work a lot with. And so one thing that I do often find myself with is having a sort of an unsolicited coaching conversation with the parent, which is necessary for them to understand that where is this rooting from? You know, this is to do with conscious parenting. What are you doing that is then triggering your child to do what they are doing? And this doesn't mean just in capacity of, you know, technology. This is even about the way they speak. As we commonly know, children they're copycats, right? They whatever words you use, they say them out again, and then it shocks you. It shouldn't really be shocking you because that's what they're seeing. And, you know, children don't listen, they see. So what they see is what they do. So yeah, that is what one needs to do is question themselves. And if you recognize that there is a problem, this is a wonderful opportunity to co-learn and to co-unlearn with your child. So, you know, what do you need in order to embrace this, the technology from a more creative and positive perspective? You have to unlearn the habits that you have realized are not benefiting you. And that's when you go into detoxing, doing dopamine fasts, which are, you know, specific processes that one can apply in the home when it comes to the use of the mobile phone. And if done with the family, it works wonderfully.
Yes. And another point, Goldie, is that often, like, you know, if we go at a restaurant and we see that the parents and the children, almost every family member is busy using their own gadgets. Of course, there are things like, you know, having rules where you can have the phone, you know, not take the phones with you, which I'm not sure how many people follow, and or keep them aside for the duration. But how can they actually create such a connection? How can parents create such a connection with their children, that no matter whether they are screenagers, they are younger, and whether they're growing older? So how do we form such bonds and connection in today's world, which is so dissociated that we refuse to connect with the person sitting sitting next to us?
This is a very, very good question you ask, Khadija, because what I'm going to tell you now is something that when I read about it, it was pretty mind-blowing for me. So we're talking about 10 years ago, 2013, there was a study performed by a psychologist and professor at MIT called Sherry Turkle. She came up with this talk. It's a TED talk. You can all watch it, which is called Connected But Alone. Okay, Connected But Alone. So what she studies is the effects of technologies on the human brain. And back then, she asked a wonderful question, which perhaps did not have as much bedrock value at the time. But if I ask you this question today, I'm pretty sure it's going to make you think twice before taking your phone out on the table, okay? Which was, as we expect more from technology, do we expect less from each other? As we expect more from technology, are we expecting less from each other?
Yes.
And essentially, that is the foundation of her work, which essentially showed how when you are in a room full of people, but your phone is in front of you, you are not connected to the person. You are connected to what is behind the screen. So you are connected, but alone. And that is what is happening. She discovered this 10 years ago, and today we are seeing the manifestation of it in social surroundings, at dinners, at parties, you know, in everyday life. At funerals, you see this happening even in the most uncommon, uncharacteristic of settings, don't we? So what is essentially then occurring, and this is even more scary, is you are connected to your phone, which is essentially something that is not in front of you. So your ability to be present is diminishing.
Yes.
And as you are not able to be present, you are unable to develop what you asked me earlier, connections between the person who is sitting right in front of you. And the conversation is void from connection. So a conversation may be happening, but it's void of connection. And connection is developed through empathy. And empathy is also, interestingly, a muscle that you must keep working on, which comes back to our back office story that we had earlier about active listening. Right? And if you don't have empathy, you have no connection.
So we're not giving people the gift of our presence.
No, we're not. We're not giving the people the gift of our presence, but my question is, are you giving yourself the gift of your own presence? Because let's forget being around each other. When you go back home and you're by yourself, let's ask ourselves the honest question. Are you not on your phone? You are. Which means you are, again, connected to a device, even in your own solitude, which then gives you no room for self-reflection. And self-reflection invites empathy. Self-reflection invites being bored. Boredom invites creativity. And these are all skills that are essentially just, declining. They're in decline.
So this is gold, actually, Goldie, that we are not giving ourselves the gift of presence. We're not enjoying solitude, and it's just totally going out of the picture. And that's our time for reflection. And actually, this is so deep. I'm really mind blown by what you just said. Talking about emotional well-being and the content that we absorb as well. A lot of us are sort of living fake lives because we're there for the pictures. Like, we're going to a restaurant, we're not there to enjoy the food. We're more focused on taking the picture of the meal. And this is what we as parents are doing. And, the screenagers as well, this is what they're learning to live with. What can be better practices that we can incorporate in our lives to limit that without battling the screen time and all, without the battle? How can we do this peacefully and a more harmonious way?
Well, earlier I explained to you how what you eat is what you feed yourself with.
Yes.
So in the same way that you consume food, that you're very aware and mindful of it not being good for you. We've become very good at that, haven't we? We want to eat organic, and we want to make sure that we are eating our greens. We're even feeding our children the right food. But what we are still very much not paying attention to is what we are feeding our brain. So that the mind platter, as I call it, and this is obviously not something I've invented. It's again, it comes scientifically proven. If you are engaging in a healthy mind platter, this is going to encourage you, to feel more connected with the people in front of you. Because what you're essentially, the purpose of this is to generate, dopamine, for example. This is just one, neural release in the brain, which is called the reward hormone. Okay, now you can develop reward hormones through various different means of practices. One of them is playing video games. But what happens with the release of dopamine through a video game is it is so fast. It's almost like a roller coaster that goes up, and then as fast as it goes up, it comes down equally fast. Okay, so it's a bit like a seesaw. When you used to go to the park when you were small, it was like a seesaw going like this. Prolonged effects of the seesaw actually make you get used to this effect of being high and then being low, being high and then being low. And then one fine day, what you find is elevated levels of anxiety and depression, because your dopamine levels are no longer in homeostasis, in balance. Okay.
Yes.
And so what we need to do is balance, bring back the balance. And in order to bring back the balance, if we take the same example of dopamine reward hormone, what you need to do is engage in practices that are coming from a more balanced and slower release methods. So, for example, a walk in nature, practicing a sport. These are all methods that allow the release of dopamine in a much more slow and dosified manner, which is what the brain is actually used to and prepared for. Because although we have developed with so much technology, we are responsible for this technology that is, covering our lives. Our brains are still millions of years old. We haven't essentially changed the machinery inside of ourselves. We are so advanced with AI, but your own brain, it can only absorb so much, and it still has the same way of functioning an operational system.
Yes.
Okay, so that's just one example of the mind platter, being outdoors. This is a huge benefit. Finding time to be outdoors during the day, even if it's just for half an hour, can do wonders. Time to be with yourself. That's also something that a lot of us, and I'm not saying by yourself with a phone, I'm saying basically with nothing. Okay, so we must enable kids and even you as an adult to just spend half an hour with yourself alone every day. And there's nothing you need to do, because that's exactly the point of it. You need to feel bored. And I can't stress that enough. You need to feel bored in the day at some point. Sleep is being affected on a huge level. Huge, because the phone, the screens are delaying, again, the release of melatonin, which is, as we know, the neural release to induce sleepiness. It is delaying the release of melatonin by hours, not minutes, by hours. And in teenagers, it's as it is delayed because of their circadian clock, which is not fully developed.
Yes. And not to mention the other consequences it has on our health when we're not getting enough sleep, the lowered immunity and whatnot.
Exactly. Consolidation of information. Your memory suffers. You are unable to, again, be empathetic. Because if you haven't slept and rested, you are not, again, producing the right, release of hormones the next day in order to be compassionate, to be empathetic with the person in front. So this is detrimental effects on relationship building, So it sounds like we have forgotten the basics. So for me, it's let's go back to basics. Address these questions. How many hours are you sleeping? Where is the phone when you go to bed? Is it in your room? Wrong answer. It needs to be away from you. Are you developing habits that require you to be with yourself alone? Are you spending time in playtime? It sounds so simple, right? Playtime means playing a game of chess. Playtime means getting a board game out and engaging in a social setting, and so on. Those are the type of engagements that we need to be pushing forward more. These are just simple tips. Obviously, if there is problems with addiction, etc., then that needs more, a closer attention. And then you definitely need, you need to see a professional about this. Yeah.
Yes, so thank you so much, Goldie, for your time and your insights. So quite a new terms that I've learned, and I'm sure those who are watching have learned as well: doom scrolling, mind platter, and a couple of things which have been my key takeaways here I'd like to mention as well. Co-learning and co-unlearning. As to foster better communication with our children and not battling the screen time, because that just creates conflict, which is not really helpful and does not foster better relationships. And then the key is balance. And going back to the basics, as you said, because balance is critical, creating that and remaining in that to give ourselves time, our children time, and then the screen as well, because as you said, we can't live without it in today's world. Technology is very much a part of our lives. So everything, but in a balanced way. So thank you so much. And any parting um, tips, hacks, or message that you'd like to give?
I was just gonna say, a lot of the times, parents and grown-ups have these conflicts with the screen because unfortunately they may not know enough. They haven't been reading up on things enough, and that's nothing to blame them for, So my first suggestion is, uh, understand what is going on in the brain with the use of excessive screen time, because children today, and for that matter even adults, are always going to grasp and follow the tips that you give them if you are able to explain it to them from a more either scientific or rational perspective. It no longer works to tell them just don't do it, it's not good for you, because they're going to question you, right? So read up and get the literature from a valid source to understand first yourself what is going on. Okay. And then I'm going to give a book recommendation, which is actually not a book about coaching or anything. It's actually a fiction novel, which is beautiful, and it's about how you can understand the ethical repercussions of having machines in your life and what this could possibly do to the human psyche. It's an eye-opening novel. It's called Machines Like Me by Ian McEwan. I read it about a year ago, and I was befuddled, dumbfounded by what I discovered. So Machines Like Me by Ian McEwan. My now 18-year-old has also read the book because I suggested it to him and he loved it. So it's very easy reading, and he's a really good author also. It's just fiction, but it gives you a really good, entrance into what we are waiting to see with AI on the
Absolutely. That's quite a hot topic nowadays. And the debate is, some people think, it's going to outperform humans, but well, to each their own. I personally don't agree with that, because I think we are the ones who created it. So essentially, we should be the ones in control. So thank you so much, Goldie, once again. And those of you who have been watching and those who will be watching it in their own time, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments and we'll get back to them. On this note, thank you once again, Goldie. It was a pleasure having you, and got so much insights. And I'm going to look up the TED Talk as well and the book. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a lovely day.
You too. Likewise. Bye-bye.
Bye.